I think every one of these sessions, we're going to just start with reading the scene. And then we can open up to discussion, questions, and all of that. And Nathan and I were talking about those people who are sitting in and listening. And we do want your input, your questions, and all of that. And I think one of the things he wanted to try was to take the last 15 or 20 minutes of the 2 hours and just open it up. My thing is that those 2 hours go so fast just looking at the play. So if I go past those 15 minutes, not because I'm neglecting you or I don't care, it's just that I can't stop talking about something that comes up, okay? So just let's read through it. And as we said earlier, we are going to switch up the roles for now. And the reason we're doing that is so that everyone participates fully in the reading. And that this was really Randy's idea, that we can look at a play and see if we can find out what's happening so that anyone can play these roles rather than zeroing in on one. Randy, do you want to address that at all further?
Well, I just want all of us to have a chance to do all of the parts and face all of the challenges in doing those parts, particularly Horatio in this first scene. You know, just personally, out of curiosity, I want to hear other actors, you know, take on that challenge of that lengthy speech that he has that's so difficult to put across easily. But maybe, you know, when another actor does it, you hear something, oh, that's an idea. That's maybe a good way to attack that line, that idea, that thought. And I'm always curious because I know I fall flat on my face all the time. I mean, let's face it. But if you aren't willing to fall flat on your face, then you're not going to get anywhere, I think. So, but at any rate, that's my thing. I just like to hear other actors handle things, you know. That's all.
Good.
Easy.
Okay. So with that in mind, lucky you, Larry, you get to do Horatio's long speech.
Oh,
we're going to take it from the beginning and again and end where we ended last time, and then we'll move forward with information about what comes next. Okay.
Wait, by last time, do you mean when the ghost enters and exits the first time, Annie?
Yeah.
We'll take it up till there?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Larry, Horatio.
Okay.
Lee, would you do Francisco this time?
You bet.
And do Marcellus. All right, Randy, I'm going to leave you out of it. I'm going to have Nick take Bernardo again.
Okay.
All right. Does that make sense to everybody?
Annie, did you say I was Marcellus?
Yes, sir. I did.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll just read through it whenever you're ready.
Who's there?
Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
Bernardo?
He.
You come most carefully upon your hour.
'Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco.
For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart.
Have you had quiet guard?
Not a mouse stirring.
Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand, who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Bernardo has my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Bernardo.
Say, what, is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus.
What, has this thing appeared again tonight?
I've seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let hold of it, touching this bright sight twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it.
Hush, hush. 'Twill not appear.
Sit down a while and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story what we 2 nights have seen.
Oh, has been frozen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Bernardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole had made his course to illume that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating one,
Peace, break the oath. Look where it comes again.
in the same figure like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoke to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurpest this time of night? Together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march. By heaven, I charge thee, speak.
It is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay. Speak. Speak. I charge thee, speak.
'Tis gone, and will not answer.
How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is it not this something more than fantasy? What think you on't?
Before my God, I might not disbelieve without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes.
Is it not like the king?
As thou art to thyself. Such was the very armor he had on when the ambitious Norway combated. So frowned he once, when in an angry parle he smote the sledded Pollux on the ice. 'Tis strange.
Thus twice before, and just at this dread hour, just at this dead hour, with martial stalk hath he gone by our watch.
In what particular thought to work, I know not. But in the gross and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption in our state.
Good, now sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart of implements of war, why such impress of shipwrights, whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week. What might be toward, that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day? Who is't that can inform me?
That can I. At least the whisper goes so. Our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by most emulate pride, dared to the combat, in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit, with his life, all those lands which he stood seized on to the conqueror, against the which a moiety competent was gauged by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras had he been vanquisher, as by the same covenant and carriage of the articles design, his fell to Hamlet. Now, sir, young Fortinbras, of unimproved metal, hot and full, hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of landless resolutes for food and diet, to some enterprise that hath a stomach in it, which is no other, and it doth well appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand and terms compulsative those foresaid lands, so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, the source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste at the roamage in the land. But soft.
Okay, good. We'll stop there. All
Mhm.
right. Okay, let me just first open it up to anything, any thoughts that you had from doing this scene last week. And then we'll start looking at it again. It's interesting to me because it seems that the most comfortable part of it is when the three men are discussing the ghost, speak to it, would be all of that. There's the atmosphere of that seems to have settled in from our discussion last week, and even though it's different players, it still resonates. But let me hear what you have, anything that you have thought about, or anything that you have questions about, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I was looking at Horatio's and Marcellus's language, and what really struck me was Horatio uses the word harrow. Now, I personally know what a harrow is and what it's for. It's a farming implement. Used as a verb, it means to disturb, to vex, to upset. But also, I think there's a double meaning of the word as used here, in that a harrow makes a really deep furrow in the earth. So I think Horatio using that word, he is really, seeing the ghost has really etched something in him outside of his, at the very beginning, he just thinks it's a fantasy. They've seen some swamp gas or something, but he's come along because they have asked him to. And he just says, no, it's not going to appear. But when it does, it kind of shakes his belief.
Well, I think, well, hang on, because let's go back to, here's the thing. He's learned about ghosts. This is all of us. You learn about something and then you see it. And it's a whole different ball game. I mean, we can all talk about a car crash.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we witness it, something else happens. So I think he has been called here because thou art a scholar, speak to it. When you start to read about what that might mean or suggest, is that he probably knew Latin, and Latin is the language of exorcism. So these men who are feared or frightened by this ghost feel that he somehow can either tell them what it means or actually speak to it when it appears. So I think that's what they're hoping for. However, when he sees, he's not just seeing a specter. He is seeing the illusion of the old king.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's it's been the circumstances start to pile on. So yeah, I think that what he's saying, I think we have to first look at just the literal meaning of harrowed before we get too lost in too many double meanings, although Shakespeare does choose words to color them because of that. But I think what we have here is he's saying that I'm split between the fear I have of it and the wonder of it, and so that moment is a moment of that, again, that car crash. I don't want to look at it, but I have to see more.
Right. And also, it's not just the image of the king that he's seen, it's the king in his battle armor.
That's right.
And with everything else that has been going on that they know of, the nightly pounding of steel to make cannons, they're bartering with other countries to get munitions. All this has been going on, and he sees
Wait. You're getting ahead of it. Let's go back a little bit, because it's almost too much of what we're getting to put into something that just happened. And that's, that is key. I want to tell you that for me, every line gives birth to the next line. I want to also say, that, and I want your feedback on this. Words have life. They don't have meaning. We spend our lives as actors as walking dictionaries because we're told Shakespeare is difficult. No one understands what he's saying. And therefore, what I have to do is let the audience know the meaning. What I want you to know is you know the meaning. Now you need to fill it with life. I think Samuel Johnson said that language is what thoughts are dressed in. And language is the skin of thoughts. So the language is there, but it's the actor has to fill that. Now, here's the other thing we have to just keep in mind as we move ahead. There's this thing that I notice with actors, and that is a kind of coding of emotion. Because if I say it quick enough, everybody will think I know what I'm saying, and that's the most important thing. So all I have to do is say it emotionally, then you'll know I'm frightened, I'm scared, I'm in love, all of that. So Shakespeare gets couched in this emotion or the sound. And what happens is all the words go away. And the audience sits there saying, this is too long. And the next director says, cut that out. And before you know it, we have a 90-minute version of Hamlet. So what I would like us to explore is the circumstance in which the line lives. And it's not just you. I think all of you can listen to that Horatio speech, and I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, Randy says, that he wants to hear somebody else tackle it. Now Larry's tackled it, and we're sitting here saying, why is he saying all of that? But we have to fill that. We have to fill it with the life. And I'll get into the details of that as we move on. I want to ask you all, what do you want out of this first scene? What is it that we want to give the audience? I mean, what is this, or how does it leave you?
I personally want it to be so exciting that the audience can't contain themselves to see what's next. For me, that's how I would like to see the scene, that it just so revs you up, wondering what's next, that you're sitting on the edge of your seat by the end of it. What's going to happen?
Right. And so how do we make that? I think that's our task, Randy. I think how do we make that happen? And I think this is where we have to crawl before we walk. I think we have to we started to do it last week. Who's there?
Yeah.
And all of the circumstances that Bernardo has experienced up until this moment. What's everything we know so far about Bernardo? I mean, as actors, I don't mean the audience. I'm just saying that before he enters, we know that he's seen the ghost twice before, right?
Right.
We know that the ghost, right? We know the ghost was in armor when he saw the ghost, because he doesn't say later on when he sees the ghost, oh, tonight he's wearing armor. Last time he doesn't say, so we can trust that he sees it in armor. We see somebody who's keeping the watch, who probably has a semblance of military garb. And it's dark. And we know from Francisco it's cold. So tell me about that first moment for Bernardo, even before he speaks.
Well, I think that's we talked about you coming most carefully and its meaning last week. I think that really informs, especially before he speaks, I think that informs like what Bernardo's doing, because whether he can't see, doesn't know, it's so dark he can't see, it's so foggy, he doesn't know who's there. He's coming cautiously because he thinks there's a ghost.
And simplify. He's terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go there. Randy wants it exciting. We can't be careful or take carefully, just the definition of carefully. We need to infuse it. Why can I guide you there? Because I also know that he's alone. When Francisco leaves, he doesn't even have Marcellus there yet. So on top of everything else, he's got to face this thing alone if those two men don't show up. So you see what I'm saying is that we can't just accept well, they'll be here at some point and that everything will be okay. For your imagination to somehow pick all of that up before you even speak, who's there? Francisco hears it. Is that normal?
Is what
No?
No.
normal? Is,
Hearing this voice from the dark say who's there.
I think that Francisco at this moment does not see this as an unexpected event, that because the guard is going to change, right? So,
Right. But look at the
But
content of Bernardo's question. Who's there? It seems to me that it should be Francisco who hears something.
yes, yes, it should. Yeah,
Right?
Francisco should indeed.
Yeah. So Lee, what I'm getting at is that it's up to Nick to bring in that moment of terrified, whatever that thing is that he sees or hears or whatever. And you now, that has to bounce off of you with,
Mhm.
you don't know why you're keeping the guard. No one's told anybody. They've just told them, get up there and keep the watch. And now this may be the enemy. This may be somebody's tricking you. Somebody, Trojan horse. This is somebody who's out there saying, who's there?
Right.
What the hell does that mean? You see what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah.
2 lines and we have excitement. 2 lines. And then you make a demand on him. Stop, stand, right?
Mhm.
And reveal yourself. This is the problem with Zoom and of course, just readings. We need
It's tricky,
we
yeah.
need this moments. The silences are filled with something.
Mhm.
So in this case, I think the silence is filled with Bernardo revealing himself. And however we decide to, hold a torch up or whatever it is, but somehow that will provoke your next line. Bernardo? Because your behavior is not what it was supposed to be, And so, I mean, this
And
makes,
it's interesting.
or am I off on a crazy ride here by myself?
Well,
I was just going to
That
say,
makes
it's
sense.
interesting that you come most carefully upon your hour when ah
Yeah,
Francisco, it's about who's in on what at the very beginning
That's right.
for
That's
each
right.
character. So Bernardo knows why he's there.
Yes.
Francisco does not know. I mean, he's there also as guard, as the watch, but he's got this other thing that he's engaged in with Horatio. I mean, with Marcellus to get Horatio there. That's something they've agreed upon. Yeah.
That Francisco.
Barnardo and Marcellus
Yes, that's right.
are
Yes.
together on this. But what I find really interesting with
Yeah.
Francisco's brief moment is that he's doing this other thing. He's doing the
Yeah,
what the hell, what the hell's going on, man? We have to go to work. It's fucking cold. It's this, it's that. I'm sick at heart. I just don't even know. So it's a certain kind of concern,
Hold on.
but and it's everything to him in this moment.
I think, I was thinking about the word watch, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
That's a specific function. They're there to see if anything unusual is going to occur, right? They've been
Yeah.
put on watch to observe, to see that everything is what it should be, and there to be watchful of anything unusual that occurs.
Hold on. From Francisco's perspective, from the soldier's perspective, from Claudius' perspective, they're on watch because Norway is going to invade.
Yes, 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 but they may not know that. But
That's
they're
right.
there to see that nothing untoward occurs, to see that the town is sleeping quietly, that all is quiet, nothing weird is going on. Um, uh, and so it catches, I think, Francisco off guard to hear this voice. What's that?
Yes.
Because all night he hasn't had any trouble. Right? Nothing weird has occurred on his watch. Not a mouse stirring. So all of a sudden he hears this voice. What? And then, being on watch, his responsibility takes over and says, no, you answer me. Right?
Yeah. I think that, and I think
My question about Bernardo and Marcellus is, after seeing this thing 2 nights in a row, how do they come back onto the watch this third night? Especially Bernardo, who's come to the watch by himself in the dark. Marcellus is going to bring Horatio with him. How does Bernardo, what's it like to be all by yourself after seeing this thing 2 nights in a row? And in all probability, Bernardo has never seen the king with armor on. Horatio will tell us later that this was the armor he wore when he had that famous fight with Norway. So these guys have never seen the king in armor? What is all that about?
Marcellus may have. Bernardo, I think I agree with
yes,
Bernardo has,
yes,
but I think only because Marcellus has a relationship with Horatio. So, and this is where we can talk later about age and
time. Yeah, right.
yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. So my point in all of this is going back to the excitement of it. I think everybody's on the right track here.
Yeah.
I think, Lee, I think you're absolutely right. It's what's going on. You are the soldier. You're the one doing.
Yeah, for me, it's a mystery. It's just a basic. It's a political and national mystery that I'm involved in.
Why you're there?
Which is plenty, which is a lot. But then,
Right.
and then it steps up again, of course, when we relay this information to Hamlet. But yeah, so don't want to get ahead.
But now we take that the next step. I think everything is fine. We're ready to trade off our watch, and you thank him. And once you thank him and you add to that it's bitter cold and I'm sick at heart. Well, what is that now to Bernardo? What does Bernardo hear with that subject?
Yeah.
What's the subtext of that? Sick at heart. Maybe he saw the ghost. And so what's your next question? Have you had guard? And a capital G on guard?
Yeah. And a capital
So
M.
again, it's not just a trading off now of, well, God, I'm miserable. Thanks. Goodbye. Oh, was it quiet up here? No, because there's something underneath it for Bernardo. Not for you. I think it is cold. You haven't been told what the hell you're watching for. So you're sick at heart. Belongs to you. You hear it, Bernardo, and you think, well, maybe he's not telling it. Because, these two men, Marcellus and Bernardo, when they see the ghost twice, they don't go running off and telling anybody. They seek out Horatio. They don't go to the king. They don't go to anyone else. So maybe Francisco is keeping it a secret. Maybe Francisco doesn't want it. So what's your next question? Have you had quiet guard? Listen to his answer.
Not a mouse stirring.
Okay, that's relief to you, Bernardo. Right, nothing. We can move on. Okay, then go, right? However, once you say go, that means you're going to be alone. That provokes the next line. If you see those other two guys, hurry up.
I don't want to be here by myself.
Yeah.
Please.
That's right. But you see how it all starts to get exciting and exciting. And only because we know. The audience doesn't. The audience sits there saying, what the hell, this is nothing like keeping the watch. To see these soldiers, right? As opposed, and again, the reason I'm saying it, maybe you've been privileged with Hamlet productions. I've seen so many productions where you basically get, who's there? No, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. Or you get the comic, guy. There's a whole thing, but I never feel like the tension that's underneath this first scene. So the audience feels like, what the hell is going to happen next? All right. So that's why I'm taking every moment and saying, look for that. Look for every moment. You're going to find that with the language as well. When you start, I'll just give you one little example, and when we're looking at Horatio's speech, you can't simply say the inheritance of Fortinbras. Horatio's pointing out the details of that compact. Now, it doesn't mean slow it down, because you got to find where to pull it together and what to hit. But you've got to understand that what he's saying here may be a reason why Fortinbras is coming back. Because according to what Horatio just said, Horatio says that the deal that Fortinbras and old Hamlet made was that the lands would be given to the inheritance of the king, not anybody who's king, not Denmark, but to the inheritance. Well, that's not what's happening in Denmark right now. The inheritance is not king. Claudius is king. So just maybe Fortinbras believes he has a right to those lands now, since the deal, which was well ratified, which was exact to every letter, has been broken. That's why when we do the Horatio speech, we've got to find a way to get the details and not bore the audience to death with hammering it out. But I think we have to know what's important about the information so that it hooks up with the play as it moves forward. Does that make sense to everybody? Or you? Or, okay.
One thing that struck me about that speech last night is that Horatio's not going to just come up there and tell them that.
No.
He had to see a ghost
Yes.
before he was moved to speculate in their presence. And I think we talked, or you referred to status, and I think it's partly because of status that Horatio doesn't need to share. That's privileged information. But now he's seen a ghost.
And with that, along with that, if you notice the first line, he says, at least the whisper goes so. So I can't stake my life on this, because this is what everybody's talking about in terms of what might be the reason for it. What's awful about all of this, of course, is that you have a king who's not telling anybody why they're keeping watch. And then, of course, when you break that speech down, you see that they're building more ships. This sounds so familiar, doesn't it? They're building more ships. These men are work day and night. So something major is happening. You think one of the soldiers should be told. Nobody's been told. They just said, he's saying, do it. So all of that starts to, all of that's within this first scene. Okay.
All of that too is because this apparition, or whatever it is dressed in armor. And Horatio recognizes the armor as what the king wore when he fought Norway.
Yeah.
Which also suggests to me that somehow Horatio was there. Now, he's usually played as a school chum, but that's a contemporary kind of idea. Fellow student, because the way we run our, rare to see old people going back to school. But there are stories from the Middle Ages of knights going back to school after they've come out, veterans going back to the university. So it also raises a question of
Olaf himself sent an old servant with his son. So not to Wittenberg, of course, but that they were accompanied by an older, dependable lord.
So it raises the question of how old is Horatio? Because he absolutely recognizes the king, and he will say that later to Hamlet. I knew your father.
These hands are not more like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're getting.
I don't know, but now we're diverting again.
While we're diverting, can I ask a question? So this is interesting. It's retroactively ruining so many productions for me, especially with the opening scene. So just a timeline question.
Yes.
So this is midnight, right? Or this is, it's this, and Claudius greeting the world. I know I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It happens in the morning, correct? I mean, that is I've always just had this question, maybe this is meant to be, but is when was Claudius?
When was
What?
he?
I mean, I've seen productions play it as if he is coming from his coronation in that in scene two. I've seen it played that way a lot, as if that is what is happening. And I know there's a lot of time jumps in this play that are often elided in a lot of productions where it seems like this takes place over about a week, which obviously doesn't. But and I guess my question about that is, we have Long Live the King. We have, we never mentioned Claude. We're vague about who. Am I making too much about the fact that we're a little vague? And then, of course, at the end of the scene, there is the very, I think, pointed decision of let's go talk to Hamlet, not to
Yep.
Claudius, about what we see. I
That's
just
right.
didn't know, is there a succession question hanging in the air at all at
Yep.
this moment?
Sure is. There
I
is.
just didn't know if it was is it public that Claudius is king, or because I
think
wasn't sure if
that-
it was until the next scene.
Well, here's the thing. I think that you're pointing out a certain route to take, which is if these men know that he's king, perhaps that's the day that he became king, and the next morning is the thanks to everyone, and the sending Laertes off, and you know what I mean. The first act of King is the first scene, the first scene with Claudius. Because they say long live the king, liegeman to the Dane, and we know the old king is dead. So who's the king they're talking about? We know Hamlet didn't have a coronation. So I think you've hit on something that's really quite interesting. Because I think that, yes, they do know he's king. And then Marcellus says, and I know where we will find him most conveniently.
Prince.
So whatever that, yeah, the prince. But again, whatever is happening, maybe the reason Marcellus knows is that it's a celebration or some kind of first day of kingship of Claudius. I've never read anything that says it specifically is the day of the coronation, all of that. I've never read anything that is that specific. But I think that I think it's safe to say he's king, and that looking at the activity that happens in that next scene, it has to do with him carrying out his rule. He takes care of taking care of business.
I just think it's interesting that I know we haven't gotten to the very end of the scene yet, but that to me puts just a little bit of weight on the fact that they do not report this up the proper chain of command, and I think that's interesting. There are, you could argue that there's sides being taken, already here.
Absolutely.
And
again, if you look at the script, Horatio has to ask their permission. Do you think it's fit to tell Hamlet? Why? Because they should be telling the king. And they're making a decision to go to young Hamlet.
Right.
And it's dangerous. It's why they don't barge into the court. They wait for everybody to leave the court. I won't get any further than that, but they wait for everybody to leave the court before they have Hamlet alone, because that's who they're going to tell.
It seems like that decision to the thing you just talked about, Horatio asking Marcellus and Bernardo, do you agree? Do you consent that we should say that is in the entire scene. It's kind of why they brought him. Why didn't they run off and tell somebody? It's like a whistleblower situation. We forget the tautness of politics and the dangers, the minefield that politics can be. And so it's interesting to
now you've added another layer to it, Lee, because now that, and goes back to what Randy was saying, now the fact that even Marcellus and Bernardo saw him in his armor and as the king has put a kind of this must mean something beyond just a ghost visiting, the tower. You know what I mean? It's now even they now have a reason to say why is this thing here? So I think it is all connected that way.
I know this is jumping ahead from what we've read, but the very end of the scene, I'm thinking that because it's just not any spirit that they have seen this night, it's the spirit of the old king in battle armor. And because it is old Hamlet, that's why I think Horatio broaches, shall we in our loves and duty impart this to young Hamlet rather than the chain of command, which we should go to the king, no matter who that is, because it is old Hamlet.
Uh,
Do you
I don't
understand
know.
me?
I don't know, Larry, that they know. All they know is that whatever this apparition is, it comes in the figure of the old king in his armor.
Okay.
But it could be a demonic force that has taken on that guise, but nonetheless, it's taken on that image. And the only one who can probably speak to that image is the son of that father.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the question will always be there. Even when Hamlet meets the ghost, Horatio says, "Don't follow it. Don't follow it, because it'll drive you mad and you'll drown. You'll commit suicide. You'll throw yourself off the cliff." Right? All of that. So it's not for certain that this is the ghost of the old king. All they know is that it's an apparition. It comes in the image of the old king.
In the image of the old king in the armor.
Even
Okay.
Hamlet has to be persuaded by the apparition itself. And even then, he's not fully, maybe in the moment it's his father, but
Mhm.
he steps away from it and he debates, is it the devil? Is the devil trying to trick me into damning myself?
Yeah, he's
So,
not sure right up until the play within the play. That's his
yeah,
whole, that's the journey
yeah.
he goes on, is that I have to find out before if I'm going to commit murder, regicide or tyrannicide, that I better know. That's why when we hear that
Yeah.
Hamlet's a guy who can't make up his mind, I wish we all couldn't make up our minds when it comes to that.
Sure.
You want proof. And so that's a big chunk of the play before we get to the play in the play. And he says, I'll take the ghost's word. He still calls him ghost at that point,
Mhm.
So,
But while I must say this, while Hamlet has that engagement with this figure of his father, it's really father and son talking to each other in that moment.
Mhm.
Maybe he'll have doubts later on about what it is he was talking to. I mean, shortly afterwards, he says, "And shall I couple hell? I saw this thing descend into the ground. What is this? Beneath
and
the
that
ground
even
of
makes it
hell."
more frightening, Randy, because
Oh,
if he's
sure,
believing the ghost in that moment to be
sure,
his father, and
sure.
then the ghost does something that that dissolves all of that,
Yep.
then you have a different moment. But again, I think that's the whole point of devils. Devils can come back in the shape of someone you love
People you
and
love.
convince you to do terrible things, because you will be wooed by the loved one that's the devil is taking the shape of. And so that's part of the dilemma of all of this. I think all of this is to say, because here we're going to have to get back to how are we going to bring all this to life, folks? But I think that all of this is to say how important this ghost is to this play. So when you start making decisions, let me say, about the ghost and how to portray the ghost, I think I told you last week, one of the things that happens in this first scene, you have 3 different people seeing this ghost from different backgrounds. We talked about perhaps Bernardo was young. He wasn't around when the king was there. You have Marcellus, who needs to depend on Horatio for his scholarship in addressing a ghost. He tells us about the folklore of ghosts at Christmas time, and I've heard that nothing can happen bad. You have 3 different points of view. Then you have the son of the ghost, of the old king, who he's going to see it. 11 times the ghost is seen. 3 by Bernardo, 4 by Marcellus, twice by Horatio, and twice by Hamlet. And if you add them all up, it comes to 11. That tells us the ghost is not a figment of Hamlet's imagination. That's what he's putting here. He's saying this ghost is real. Enough people have seen it. Now, do your best to put that ghost on stage. Don't make him a light. Don't make him take over Hamlet's body. Don't do any of that if you're doing Shakespeare's play. If you're not, my hat's great, have a ball. But my point is, if you're doing, and that's what this is about, this work we're doing, is that we're somehow saying, here's what the play says. It doesn't, I don't mean to take away from any creative license of any genius director or actor, but we're just saying, what does the play tell us? And what can we get from that? And so I can tell you that I know that the ghost has been seen by 3 different men 11 times, collectively 11 times, okay? Now you know. I mean, that's the same thing with the armor. What are you going to do with all of that information about the armor? Just cut it out? But that seals the case in many ways. It is so much information about that ghost's appearance. And when we do come to the Norway battle, as I said, it reflects on Fortinbras. So that's what I think ultimately we can hang our hat on. Others, how to play it, it's in your hands, guys. I mean, that's the glory of the actor. And that's why I'm happy to get back to this, is that I can't tell you how to play it. I can tell you this is what's happening, but you have to bring your imagination, your sense of dread, your sense, Nick, when I throw at you, he's terrified. It's a horrible direction. But if it whets your imagination and you say, okay, well, somehow I'm going to have to find my way there, great. But I think that's what we're looking for, is how do we make it live moment to moment? How do you make it live moment to moment? But the only thing
Nick, you should try going to a graveyard by yourself
at night
of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, I regularly. That's
Right.
Right. So anything else happen? I think, the moment with Horatio, we'll look at it again, but the other moment with Horatio, I think, is so important, not just that speech, is that you have a word. This is again where I'm going to just, let me say I'm crazy, because I spend my time with every word that makes up this text, every word. I see the word look, and I first take it literally. Look where it comes again. All right. So that tells me that somehow they're not in the direction of the ghost coming, as opposed to it just being, Shakespearean moment of, oh, well, everybody said look, says look. But that's, and it seems to me, when we're looking at that scene with the 3 men, the 3 of them seeing the ghost for the first time, there's the word look comes in there with Horatio. Can you just take a quick peek at that? Mark it, Horatio. I'm sorry, not look, but look. Look, not like the king, but the first one, right? Mark it, Horatio. Speak to it, Horatio. But what is Horatio? I guess where I'm getting with is I hear what he's saying, but what is he doing? What's the impact? Because again, sometimes it becomes talking heads. It harrows me with fear and wonder. If something harrows you with fear and wonder, do you look at it directly? Do you look away? Do you step back? What happens to your moment?
Larry, if you thought harrowing was being cut to the quick, or cut deeply, that's got to manifest itself in how you render that line.
Right.
But one's getting the feeling that these men are not getting the reaction from Horatio that's expected. I mean, he doesn't see the ghost and go right into exorcism or talking to the ghost. His first response is they're the ones who are saying, do something, say something. They have to pull him together to get him to, so that's a Horatio moment where the other two men are working on him to please say something. It would be spoke to. What does that mean? It would be spoke to. What does the ghost do?
Also, too, Annie, I think Horatio's approach the first time is different from his approach the second time with the ghost.
I
I
agree.
think he's almost impertinent the first time, and
Yes.
that's why the ghost almost takes offense. How dare you talk to me like that? You know,
Yes, and
almost like that. And
it-
then the second time, he's a little more, has to be a little more
right. If you
kindly
could
with
say
this.
that in keeping with ghost treatment of ghosts, the reason he does that is you're not nice to an evil spirit.
Right.
And so what he's got to do first is take the reins. He has to be impertinent or
Right, right.
commanding in that moment. And then when he says, by heaven, I charge thee, speak, and the ghost leaves. And that again, heaven is a tip off, or at least a curiosity of, oh my God, that's the first sign we have of perhaps this is not a benevolent spirit, right? The second time, I'll give you a spoiler alert, those three questions, I can show you where it comes up in ghost lore, treatment of ghosts. They're very specific questions to find out if a ghost is benevolent or not. So, because there were times when spirits were allowed to come back to make rectitude for something that they've done that's evil, they hide, if they have treasure, that treasure can be used to help somebody poor to burn off those sins that they are dealing with in purgatory. So all three questions have to do with Horatio hoping behind hope, beyond hope, but also questioning quite specifically questions that have to do with finding out, is it benevolent? Why? Because it left on heaven. And then what happens at the end of that moment? The cock crows. Ah, another sign. His being harrowed with fear and wonder is right there in the moment. Sometimes it seems like it could be benevolent. Sometimes it seems, oh, I'll show you one other little thing. You know that parentheses around, so this side of the known world thought him?
Deceives him. Yeah.
What he's saying is, we all thought he was, the last thing we would expect would be this king coming back for purgatory or as a demon. So that's what he's saying. It's a personal moment of, so the side of the known world thought him. He's added that. It's not part of the whisper that goes so. Does that make sense? It's you see what I'm saying? I love it.
Yeah, it's like that's what we thought of this person,
Yeah.
but now, under these circumstances, that's called into question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Anybody
The
else?
world is out of, time's out of joint.
Yes.
Yes,
Sure.
it is. It's so interesting you should say that, because a lot of the stuff that the scholars have said is that it's been out of joint before Hamlet says it. It's been out of joint before the play starts, just because Claudius has taken over. So, all right.
I think when we're talking about the tension and the all of that of this brief scene,
Yeah.
one thing that I think really feeds it is the actions. Each one of these people has a very powerful action. They're engaged in very purposeful behavior.
Yep.
Marcellus and Bernardo, of course, are desperate to have somebody confirm what they saw, and they dare not speak about for so many reasons. You don't go around telling, as a soldier, hey, I just saw a ghost.
Right.
So they need to keep a lid on this. And it's a big risk telling anybody, and they carefully
Yep.
choose Horatio, it seems. And Horatio also, it's like this is a non-deal for him until it's not. And then he, but the action, I want him to confirm that that's what we see, and speak to it. Make
Yeah.
conversation so we understand. And then when we get to it is offended and it goes away, it did not speak. It didn't speak. We failed. We failed. We don't know anything. But it's the purposeful intent of these that I think undergirds the tension of the entire
And the
Ghost
nagging
story.
question, if the country is being armed for war, why is this figure of the old king walking the battlements?
Yeah.
What's he here? What is this sign?
Mhm.
What does it import? You
And
know?
add to that, if he is here because he is burning off the sins, because this is a kind of, he's in a purgatory, and he's in the armor in which he killed Norway, it might be the fact that he killed someone, and that's part of, it's more than one, it's filled with curiosity. Why is he walking the night? He tells Hamlet he's got to do it. He's been told he has to walk the nights until his sins are burnt and purged away. What's the possibility of the sins? And maybe that's part of the armor, you know? Everybody went silent on me. It's like, oh, that's not it. Just
All
throwing
right.
it into the pan. Yeah.
Well, and maybe, I mean,
Wait, I just want to say one other thing, and that is that the ghost doesn't come, he doesn't say, listen, heaven, listen, hell, I'm going to take a trip to Denmark because I have something to tell my son. That doesn't happen. It's circumstance that leads him to that opportunity. He is there to deal with his sins. He has been made to walk for a certain time. And so I think that's what I think keeps it alive, is that, okay, he was there, he walked, he saw Bernardo and Marcellus, no conversation, no stopping, no nothing. Now, maybe it's because they didn't stop him, but now Horatio comes into the scene, somebody that we can count on, that he knows. And maybe now there's that connection, gives him an action that he didn't have when he was walking 2 nights ago. I think that's where it's moment to moment. Yeah, I hate the fact that it's so quiet.
No,
Does
no.
that make sense?
It is a bugger trying to do this on Zoom, and at the same time, kind of great because we're forced in here to wrestle with these distinctions and these, the structure of all of this. And so I feel like when we finally get released onto a stage, we're going to want to try
Do you think,
Desperate to move
so
anything,
many things.
yeah.
do you think that the ghost, when he comes and he recognizes Horatio, that's what brings him back the second time
I do. I
Hmm,
can't, again, I can't hang my hat on it, but
in
I
order to speak
do.
to him?
hmm,
Because
hmm.
he starts to speak, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
Before the cock crows,
that's
and
right.
that drives him off the stage.
well, I
Yes.
think it's this vision of like heaven and hell that we all have, that it's not Don Juan in hell. It's not, yeah, you
No,
can just, you're a ghost that can kind of visit anywhere and flood
No,
about and whatever. Old Hamlet was a part of this world at one point. He's not a part of it anymore.
right?
So he's got to kind of grab on to whatever, he's in punishment right now. I can't imagine the powers that be are just going to let him find his son, tell him what happened, tell him to go kill Claudia. Like, he's reaching out. He's looking for anything he recognizes. Luckily
Yes,
he sees Marcellus and Bernardo.
yeah,
It
I
leads him
think
to Horatio, and then eventually.
I've been thinking about the ghost, what it would be like to play him. And I've come to the conclusion that he still carries all his passions, all his feelings, and things can catch him off guard. It's not like he's all knowing all of a sudden and all powerful,
Right. Well,
he's a damned soul.
and was killed, I mean, in his sleep. Do we know that?
That's
I don't
right.
know.
No last rites.
So, I mean, that goes back to the sins about
Sent to my account with all
Get-
my imperfections
Yes.
on my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And about killing. I mean, the sin was killing, but the sin was also not being read your last rites, not being able to ask forgiveness and all of that.
That's right.
I don't know. That sticks with me more, like,
That's right.
just in terms of like, yeah, killing, but like that's something that we're all kind of like, in this world at least, they're supposed to be granted.
Right.
And that, like, I don't know, that there's something suspicious there, that
I
it's
think
not.
Nick, I think this is the questions that are coming out of this are the same questions that anybody has about heaven and punishment and purgatory and all of that. And that's what these men are wrestling with, and that's what the audience is meant to wrestle with too. An Elizabethan audience would have, I think, known. Although I think there are people who in our audiences who would also say, listen, if a spirit comes back, then that's a demon. There's no spirit who's been sent off. This is certainly a Protestant.
And walks the night.
It's heaven or hell. That's right. A Catholic point of view is a purgatory. How one, now we never know, some people have a notion of where that purgatory is, but it's being introduced in this play as a kind of task that he has to do every night until he has rid himself of those sins. So, but it's everything. I mean, I don't think anybody can say, I know what heaven is, and I know what hell is, and I know who goes, and I know who doesn't go, and there's no knowing. There's just questions about it. So I think what makes it so exciting are the questions we all have about, is it an evil spirit, or is it a good spirit? Or can it be a good? Is it Hamlet's father? There's another question. Or is it a specter that is posing as Hamlet's father? The questions. I told you last week, this play has more question marks than any other play he wrote. And I think it's why the play has lasted so long. Our problem is we spend our time answering them rather than getting behind the questions. I think the more we can put the questions out there, the more the audience will be interested, because it becomes participatory. Now they're part of it. I wonder, gee, it makes me think, it makes me feel, rather than this is the way it is. Claudius is this awful person. Gertrude is this. Ophelia is that. End of story. I'll do it for you. In fact, you're too stupid to get it, so let me do it for you. Rather than saying, gee, I wonder really what is happening. So I move forward because I want to know more. I think that's where we're heading right now with this conversation. I feel now we're ready to jump in. Does everybody feel that? Just to
Sure.
go back to the script. Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's say, Ben, I'm going to have you do Bernardo now. I'm going to be a little bit closer to age, looking at it from age. Okay. So let's do.
Wait, what does that say about this group that I'm the young one? How did that happen? Okay.
That's why Nick is reminding you. So let's
Your
do
looks are
that.
deceptive, Ben.
And then I'd like Lee, take Marcellus again. Randy, take Horatio, and Larry, go back to Francisco. I know we did that last week, but let
Sure.
me just hear the possibility of this scene, and then I promise we'll move on.
Who's there?
Me, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
But just for a sec, I'm going to do a little interfering, and
Yeah,
all right.
do.
Please.
Up the stakes, Ben, really with a sense of being as fearful as he would be. Do you know what I mean? So really when you come into it, my other suggestion, this is a suggestion, because he says stand, what would happen if you ask the question and then move? So he doesn't, if it is the ghost, he can't locate you. Do you see what
I do, yeah.
So you say it, you move, and you say stand,
Yeah.
because you see this figure move in the night or in the dark. All right. And then you tell him who has to be answered here. Take command of it. And I think it has to be pulled together a little more, because now you know what it is, so we don't have to labor it at all. and give him the command to show himself. Then you walk out from the dark, from whatever, and you say you're long live the king. Okay. Then you ask, then we'll go from there. Let's see what happens. All right. I'm trying to put under this a real sense of fear and dread based on what we've discussed. So I think we have to be careful of it being just too considerate of each other and get right in there. This is about really, who the hell are you? Don't you ask me who I am. You stop. You know what I mean? That's not quite right. It was very Queens of me, but I am from Queens. Jump in. Oh, sorry.
Who's there?
Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself.
Long live the king.
Otto,
He.
you come most carefully upon your hour.
It is now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco.
For this relief, much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart.
Have you had quiet guard?
Not a mouse stirring.
Well, good night. If you do meet Horatio and Marcellus, the rivals of my watch, bid them make haste.
I think I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Bernardo has my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Bernardo?
Say, what is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Welcome,
Let me-
good
Can I
Marcellus.
stop you just for a second now that we're bringing the other guys in? Great relief, Ben. Great relief. So when you do the welcomes, it really is finally you have company on that watch.
Yeah.
So, you see what I mean? Yeah. So let's take it again. And I think too, this is a tiny thing, but Horatio does not mention the king. He's friends to this ground. And it's Marcellus who has to come in and say liegemen to the king.
Dane.
Because that has to be there, that we have allegiance to this king, and Horatio does not. So Horatio just says that, okay, I'm friends to this ground. It's a
Right.
little thing, but you see what I'm saying.
I do, yeah, it's interesting, yeah.
So let's bring them in again. I think I hear them.
I think I hear them. Stand! Who's there?
Friends to this ground.
And liegemen to the Dane.
Give you good night.
Oh, farewell, honest soldier. Who hath relieved you?
Bernardo has my place. Give you good night.
Hola, Bernardo?
Say, what is Horatio there?
A piece of him.
Welcome, Horatio. Well, welcome, good Marcellus.
What? Has this thing appeared again tonight?
I have seen nothing.
Horatio says 'tis but a fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching this dreaded sight twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it.
Oh, tush, tush, 'twill not appear.
Sit down a while, and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story, what we 2 nights have seen.
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Bernardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole hath made his course to illuminate that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself,
Okay, hold for a
the
second.
bell then.
Hold for again. Great guys, everybody's doing well. Storytelling around a fire. Last night of all, you know what I mean? Again, because if it gets too emotional right now, we don't hear the details. And what I think we want to do, Ben, is to keep that little ghost story going. And then it's Marcellus who says, he's here, you know? So if it has too much energy, we can't get that contrast. Make sense? Okay.
Yes. Where from?
Well, sit we down, and let us hear Bernardo speak of this.
Last night of all, when yon same star that's westward from the pole had made his course to illuminate that part of heaven where now it burns, Marcellus and myself, the bell then beating one.
Break thee off. Look, where it comes again.
In the same figure, like the king that's dead.
Thou art a scholar. Speak to it, Horatio.
Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio.
Most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder.
It would be spoke to.
Question it, Horatio.
What art thou that usurps this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee, speak!
It is offended.
See, it stalks away.
Stay, speak! Speak! I charge thee, speak!
'Tis gone and will not answer.
How now, Horatio? You tremble and look pale. Is not this something more than fantasy? What think you on't?
Before my God, I might not this believe without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes.
Is it not like the king?
As thou art to thyself. Such was the very armor he had on, when the ambitious Norway combated. So frowned he once, when in an angry parle he smote the sledded Polacks on the ice. 'Tis strange.
Thus twice before, and just at this dead hour, with martial stalk, hath he gone by our watch.
And in what particular thought to work, I know not. But in the gross and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state.
Good, now sit down, and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon.
Wait, hold for
Yep.
1 second.
Yep.
When he introduces that being a problem to something that's going to happen in the country, make the connection, and make the connection to that. and
Eruption to
don't
our
go on
state?
Huh?
You're talking about connecting to Horatio's eruption to our state?
Yes. And so put 2 and 2 together with.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
2 + 2, right here.
In what particular thought to work, I know not. But in the gross and scope of my opinion, this bodes some strange eruption to our state.
Good now. Sit down and tell me, he that knows, why this same strict and most observant watch so nightly toils the subject of the land, and why such daily cast of brazen cannon and foreign mart for implements of war. Why such impress of shipwrights, whose sore task does not divide the Sunday from the week? What might be toward, that this sweaty haste doth make the night joint laborer with the day? Who is that can inform me?
That can I, at least the whisper goes so. Our last king, whose image even but now appeared to us, was, as you know, by Fortinbras of Norway, thereto pricked on by most emulate pride, dared to the combat, in which our valiant Hamlet, for so this side of our known world esteemed him, did slay this Fortinbras, who by a sealed compact, well ratified by law and heraldry, did forfeit with his life all those his lands which he stood seized on to the conqueror, against the which a moiety competent was gauged by our king, which had returned to the inheritance of Fortinbras had he been vanquisher, as by the same covenant and carriage of the article design, his fell to Hamlet. Now, sir, young Fortinbras, of unimproved mettle, heart and full, hath in the skirts of Norway here and there sharked up a list of landless resolutes for food and diet, to some enterprise that hath a stomach in it, which is no other, and it doth well appear unto our state, but to recover of us by strong hand and terms compulsative those foresaid lands so by his father lost. And this, I take it, is the main motive of our preparations, the source of this our watch, and the chief head of this post-haste and roamage in the land. But soft, behold, lo, where it comes again. I'll cross it though it blast me. Stay, illusion. If thou hast any sound or use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing to be done, that may to thee do ease and grace to me, speak to me. If thou art privy to thy country's fate, which haply foreknowing may avoid, oh, speak. Or if thou hast abhorred in thy life extorted treasure in the womb of earth, for which they say you spirits oft walk in death, speak of it. Stay, and speak. Stop it, Marcellus.
Shall I strike at it with my parson?
Do, if it will not stand.
It is here.
Oh, 'tis here.
'Tis gone. We do it wrong, being so majestical to offer it the show of violence, for it is as the air, invulnerable, and our vain blows malicious mockery.
It was about to speak when the cock crew.
And then it started, like a guilty thing upon a fearful summons. Now I have heard, the cock that is the trumpet of the day doth with his lofty and shrill-sounding throat awake the god of day, and at his warning, whether in sea or fire, in earth or air, the extravagant and erring spirit hies to his confine. And of the truth herein, this present object made probation.
Faded on the crowing of the cock.
Aye.
Some says that ever 'gainst that season comes wherein our Saviour's birth is celebrated, the bird of dawning singeth all night long. And then, they say, no spirit can walk abroad. The nights are wholesome. Then no planets strike, no fairy takes, nor witch hath power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is the time.
So have I heard, and do in part believe it. But look, the morn in russet mantle clad walks o'er the dew of yon high eastern hill. Break we our watch up, and by my advice, let us impart what we have seen tonight unto young Hamlet. For upon my life, this spirit dumb to us will speak to him. Do you consent we shall acquaint him with it, as needful in our loves, fitting our duty?
Let's do it, I pray. And I this morning know where we shall find him most conveniently.
Good.
Okay, we're moving ahead. Better and better.
Ooh.
And now this section, of course, we'll take a closer look at, but if you notice at the end of it, what we have is this moment where, do you agree? And I think if we're on stage, I would say just take that moment
Yeah.
and make that decision that, yes, and in fact, I know exactly. It's become that important to tell Hamlet. And Bernardo, of course, will be left out of that. So he can play Baltimore.
It's interesting
That's
how
Or come
you know,
back as
after-
Laertes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
after Hamlet sees the ghost, they do a similar, coming together in
Yeah.
agree. I mean, it's
Yes,
elevated,
yes.
of course, but
Yeah.
that same kind of, are we together on this?
No, longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long did
Yeah,
he say?
but he means even when they go and put your, steal your fingers on your lips, I pray,
Yes,
that they come
Of
together. I
course.
remember even when we did it at APT, this moment of, they were almost weeping at the end of it, from the ordeal that they had been through, and they just
Oh,
collected.
and hearing the ghosts under the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, but again, this is this is the human part of it, is what do people do when they've experienced something that horrific or that frightening or whatever? They come together. They don't, this is what I'm trying to impress on everyone. And I will tell you too about the folio. The folio helps with that. Once you learn, I've done these sessions and people say, oh, teach the folio, teach the folio. Like, I can give you the folio in 20 minutes, but my God, you have to, it's an interpretive tool. So you look at the capital, just hitting it hard or, jumping on a colon, nothing's going to happen. I'll tell you right now, it's just going to be technical. But what you need to do is say, why would somebody hit that, not a mouse stirring, not a mouse stirring, but it gives life to that moment. It really impresses on how quiet it is. But I think that sometimes what happens is that we don't allow the words to take on life. And they do. That's the whole point of a Shakespearean text. It's not to make it sound updated somehow or speak it fast so it sounds like I know this language. I will tell you, after being with it so many years, if a character has a 3 or 4 syllable word, I guarantee you it's not going to go fast the same way it wouldn't today if you wanted to use that. And that choice becomes very important as to why would that character choose that word under these circumstances when there are 3 shorter words that one could use. So there's a lot of information there, but again, it needs to be filtered through your imagination to say, wow, what is the humanity of this moment? I told you that Mike Nichols story when they asked him what made him a good director. And he said, I say to my actors, what is this moment of life really about? And I think that's a wonderful explanation to say, okay, what is this? What is it to see a ghost? What is it to feel, not only see a ghost, now with the second half, to see a ghost that responds to stimulus that only an evil spirit would respond to? And do good spirits come back at all? That all of the questions that come out of the behavior of this spirit. And that's why something happens. And I think you're rightly, it's great to be on Zoom, but if we were up on our feet, we would spend some time on, when does the ghost recognize Horatio? What is that, when he has that, even in that first part of that scene, when he exits the first time, he, my heaven, I charge to speak. When he, I can't find it on the script, right? But my point is that he was about to before. There's another line. You guys have it in front of you, but there's another line that suggests that he was going to say something, or
he was about to speak when the cock crew.
But earlier, before he leaves the first.
Bernardo has that line, it would be spoke to.
There you go.
What does the ghost do to?
That's right. That's right. It would be spoke to. So what is he doing? Is he lifting his head? Is he looking directly at, it sounds like it's Horatio because the men are urging Horatio to speak to him, but that's where on our feet on a stage, actually staging it starts to become essential. This is the thing I always say about, scholars, and I admire them, and I spend a lot of time with what scholars have written. But the thing is, they don't know about the silences we have to deal with. They know about the words that are written. But so much of our life on stage is that moment where nothing is said, but something is being passed on from actor to actor. And that's what we have to get when we get up on our feet. Any other observations?
Yeah. I think it's, we talked about it last week, just all the baggage we bring into this play. Some of us, all of us having been in it, a lot of us having played the guy, or whatever. And I think this is obvious, but you listen differently depending on what your literal role is, a character in the play, or For me, I love being here because I have some of the most influential sort of people in my life literally staring at me right now, which is very interesting between Annie and Randy and Sandy and my parents here and everything. It's a lot of I look at, lately I do so much teaching, which I'm really taking that hat off when I'm in this room because I'm enjoying just being sort of a student here, which I'm really enjoying. But I know that when I'm looking at plays, I'm usually a mechanical problem solver. I'm translating the words into the visual of what I want to make. It's not a surprise that I like to draw. I'm often going just mechanically, where do people need to be? I'm choreographing in my head. But then it's interesting to go into this and to have, kind of two pretty stellar actors reading, the Horatio and Marcellus thing, and being Bernardo, a role that, I don't think I've played. I've played a bunch of small roles in the show over the years, but the scene I don't think has ever given this much scrutiny in any production that I've been in. We've now spent more time than I think any production of the show I've been in on this scene total, including tech, probably. But it's just fascinating. I mean, I know this show well, I guess is my point. I know it. I've looked at it from a lot of angles. Looking at it, just listening as Bernardo, I hear better than I do when I listen as an audience member, because having the actor brain on of going, what is Bernardo listening for?
Sure.
I realize, and I mentioned this last week, I never would have thought it, but it's strangely, I think Bernardo is the audience surrogate in this scene, because he's the one who brings no new information to the table, other than he's seen a ghost. So Francisco goes away, and then because he is there, he wants answers, and he doesn't add anything. Marcellus and Horatio add information. He said not just Horatio with his Latin and his knowledge, but Marcellus has the sort of homespun wisdom. And I realized this time through, listening to it being read really well, I was like, oh, that's what I've been listening for. If I'm this character, that's the moment. And you brought it up, Andy, and I was actually going to mention it, but I don't think I'd ever really clocked that line of Horatio's, that is, this bodes some strange eruption. I mean, I've clocked it as a director, like I get it, but as the actor, like that's what Bernardo's been listening for. And I also think the audience, what is this? What is the answer? This is bad. Oh shit. And then I think the same thing sort of happens because Bernardo was very silent, and it is listening to Horatio's explanation, which I find kind of riveting when I put Bernardo's hat on. And I trick myself as an audience member sometimes. I'm not wearing that, but I'm going, oh, wait a minute. But that's our job, isn't it? To make the audience as curious as Bernardo. Sure. I guess this is my long way of saying I'm having a little aha moment in this scene where I'm going, I sort of think Bernardo's POV is strangely important to the sort of the tracking, or at least it unlocked it for me. I go, oh, okay. Because I was hanging on Horatio's speech in that one and understanding it differently, because I had just heard what I'd never heard before, which is, yes, you guys are in trouble. You were right to call. You wanted my expert opinion. My expert opinion is something's bad.
Yes.
And then listening to that speech. Okay, so why is this bad? And it was just riveting and sort of fascinating to me. And that, I think that comes out of this thing we're doing, trading around roles. I think if I'm playing Horatio, I don't necessarily figure that out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. That was long and rambling.
Going through
epiphany.
all of this, especially this second session, Bernardo, I believe, is very observant about what's been going on. He and Marcellus have seen this ghost apparition twice before. Bernardo is the one who's going to tell Horatio exactly what they've seen, and then the ghost comes in again. And Bernardo is the one that I think notices a different behavior in the ghost, because he's the one to say it would be spoke to.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point, Larry.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing that you start to explore it. All of a sudden you want, and this is the other caution in all of this. It is the first scene of the play. And it shouldn't be the 2-hour traffic. I think that what we have to do is, the more we establish what it is, or what's important to be communicated, but most of all, it's about the playing between you guys. I mean, I think that's the other element that's in here. And I thought you started to take the time that's necessary. There's no fast or slow. I think what we have to find is the time that's necessary to whatever moment that we have. I think, Lee, when I said you'd pick up on Randy's line, I think your instinct was right, though, that there is an upset under it. That is, this is not a guy who's just, cataloging all of the ways that they've had to prepare. He doesn't like it, is also under there. But if you can, my only point was to take it from Randy and then you can take off with it.
Yeah.
It starts to connect. Whenever you can connect to another actor, I think another character, I think now the play is alive, because as I said, whatever he said is going to give birth to your line. Whatever you say now will give birth to the next line. I would say even with coming in, with the ghost coming in, the source of this, our watch, and the chief head and post of this rummage in the land, he's talking about the upset in Denmark, and who comes in? The ghost. Did he hear it? Did he, but again, it's just everything connects somehow. Even if he didn't hear, if the guy's playing the ghost didn't hear it, the audience sees him show up, then.
They make the connection.
Yeah. Huh?
They
What?
make the connection. Or they.
Yes.
See
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's great. Randy, I want to point out also one other thing, and that is, because you guys were you had talked about Norway, and you had said earlier this bodes some strange eruption to our state. When you get to the line, when Horatio gets to the line, if thou art privy to thy country's fate,
Yeah.
those two caps on that are pretty important, because they're tying back to
Yeah.
the state of Denmark.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's not, when you read some stuff about this and they say, oh, he's just asking questions of the ghost, or it becomes a general ghost discussion. It isn't. It's quite specific. And I think that's, I heard more of that today, because if you look at the content of that, he said, first of all, he says he's going to take a huge risk. I'll cross it, though it blast me. He's going to cross in front of the ghost.
Yes.
Some people do a kind of, making a cross, but it makes much more sense if he is going to take the risk of standing right in front of that ghost and ask his questions.
Yeah.
And if you look at the content of that, if thou has any sound or use of voice, speak to me. Let me tell you, one of the things that I've read is that if a ghost speaks, you will be able to tell whether it's benevolent or not by what it says. And so the thing that he asked, and you notice the ghost, it's a midline stop, the ghost does not answer. And he goes to the next question. Right. Any use of voice, speak to me. If there be any good thing, now he's urging, can we do anything to help, is the next line, right? That may ease you, speak to me. Now we talk about the country's faith. And now we talk about the extorted treasure. And that was, as I said earlier, that was believed to be a common thing where hidden treasure could be used to ease the pain of someone suffering. And a spirit, it was thought that a good spirit, or a spirit that was allowed to come back, could express where that treasure is, so those treasures could be appropriately given to people who need them. So you can see where Horatio's hoping that some of this may prove to be. But here's the problem. He doesn't answer it. He was about to speak. But before that happens, the cock crows and he takes off. So if there was anything benevolent about it, he blows it by rushing off at the cock, So again, we have a question thrown right in before we have an answer. But I think the questions are what make, right from this bodes some strange eruption to our state, Horatio feel Hamlet has to know about this. And he knows, goes back to what you had said earlier, Larry, it's quite true, is that what he is saying is, do you agree? Because you guys now are going to take the risk. So that's why I say, take the moment, weigh it out a little bit before, I know that we could just jump in and say, yeah, I do. But I think to paint the danger of it, perhaps a little time might be necessary. Let's do it. To show the danger of it. That's all I'm trying to see if that would help. Okay.
I really love Marcellus's chunk after the eruption to our state, just purely from a questioning point of view. Why?
Why?
Yeah. What may be toward? Tell me. It's like enough of this.
Yeah, but that's why I say just this little light goes off when he says, the eruption, then you're like, what? And then then the upset of all of it comes in. Why? Yeah.
Yeah, and he does actually, just to note, opinion being capitalized too. That's why Horatio is there. He's there
Yeah.
for his opinion. This is my opinion, at least as far as this portion of the matter goes.
Yeah.
And here's my conclusion. And it's like, okay, fine.
Also,
Now we can stand on that and move forward
yes.
with
And
these.
this is the scene that establishes Horatio as the thing Hamlet compliments him about later on. He is not somebody who jumps in and has an emotional response to things, although this ghost comes close to, making Horatio be filled with fear and wonder. That's about as emotional as I think we're going to see, other than at the very end of the play of Horatio. He's very good in sizing up the situation and taking care of it, but here that the impact of his response is, this is something bigger than what his books will teach him. And again, when you read about, people will say that he spoke Latin because he went to Witten, he knows ghosts because he went to Wittenberg. The audience isn't going to get that. Maybe someone I will. But other than that, it's more about what I had said to you, Lee, in my text, is that what if Marcellus comes from a background that's less educated, because he does depend on the scholarship of Horatio, and what if his description of ghosts, what he knows of ghosts, is a fairy, the Santa Claus story, or
Simple, yeah.
yeah, something that's just about, well, here's what, fairy tale almost. So you get a difference between the two men. Okay. I have no idea what time it is, or
I just have one last thing to say. I've been going over Horatio. His terms for what he has seen. The first thing, he doesn't even call it by any name. It's just like, what are you? That blah, blah, blah. And then he calls it illusion, object, and not till the very end when he's saying, this spirit will talk to young Hamlet.
yes, well, that's another thing that you've brought up, which is important, and that is, you can never address a spirit with their name, or you have to let them know, they are not the thing itself. And so that may be why the use of that happens with Horatio. But again, it's this treatment of how dangerous that spirit could be to your soul, to you. He's not going to pull out a sword and fight with you, but he can damn you.
Mhm.
And that's what that will be Horatio's warning to Hamlet. And these people were terrified of being damned, as we should all be. I mean, even in history, let's not even say heaven or hell, but there are a lot of people who are going to be damned in history. So that's a concern. It should be a concern. I'll move on before I get Nathan. Where are we? It's Nathan here.
We are exactly where we should be, Annie. Well done. I would say, I'm just looking at the notes. Doug, or the comments. Doug wrote a question. He says, why does Marcellus say, he that knows to Horatio at the
good
beginning of
point.
his speech, and then ends it with, "Who is it that can inform me?"
Yeah, I can answer that. The expression "he who knows" means anybody. Tell me someone. It has a vague, it doesn't mean Horatio who knows. It means tell me he that knows. Anybody who knows, tell me the answer to this. All right. And that's why at the end, it becomes specific to Horatio. Does that make sense? You guys, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
No?
Makes sense to me,
This
Doug.
is
If you have
an
any
odd
follow-ups,
phrasing.
yeah.
What?
I don't
Yeah.
think for a moment he suspects that Barnardo might be able to
Yeah,
answer
right,
that
right,
question.
right.
So he is saying it in a general sense,
Yeah.
almost idiomatically. Yeah. You
Yeah.
think, and yeah. But what you said, I totally agree with.
So we use they that way. Why don't
Yeah.
they do something about it?
Exactly. It's
Talk about it. Yeah.
that desperation, that frustration, that
frustration.
I'm at my limit. Who's going to answer this? Who? Anybody here?
The
You?
other thing
You?
too, Nathan, whoever asked the question, is that we have no answers. So who does know? I think it's, no one is giving us the information why this is happening, why this is happening.
Right.
Okay.
And that is
Great.
that is again, that's the common feeling in the country.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the buzz. That's the
Yep.
confusion. That's the what is going on today. Why are
So we have a kind of silent kingship here right now. These things that are happening, these men not knowing why they're keeping the watch, the king coming, the illusion of the king coming back, these men not sure of not going to the king with this information, is setting us up for the next scene. Because now we're going to meet the man himself. We're going to see that king and then we're going to see it moment to moment how he deals with Laertes, how he deals with Hamlet, how he deals with Fortinbras. We'll see him in action. And I beg everyone to restrain themselves from judging him. Allow him to be a strong leader. Judge him when Hamlet, because here's the thing, if we know and we say he's horrible, he's evil, and then the actor playing him plays him evil, well, then that makes Hamlet a jerk. Why doesn't Hamlet just kill him on the spot? What is Hamlet? Hamlet's educated. Hamlet knows things. Hamlet's sensitive, and he doesn't get it. And yes, he does have a line about, giving us the idea that he shouldn't. It's an inkling that he has about it. But I think the more we let the play open up and not believe that everybody in the audience knows everything. They all know Hamlet's so old, everybody's seen it. It's just an old play that everybody sees. So I better do something new with Claudius because everybody in the audience has seen 15. Not everybody's been where they've been in the show and they've directed it, they've acted it. Some people won't know who Claudius is at all, believe it or not. And now that they're not even taught in schools, nobody will know. But just allow the character to develop and move on to who he or she becomes. Okay. That was the question of the day.
Yeah, there haven't been any other questions yet, but any audience members, you're welcome to chime in either in the chat
Come on, let's see you.
or jump on your mic or on camera.
Right.
Otherwise, of course, you guys can keep discussing specific things or read it, whatever part you'd like, Annie. We don't have to necessarily end early if there aren't any questions, any additional questions. But we have people coming on. This is wonderful. Hello, hello.
Hello.
All right, who wants to be first?
And the reason, by the way, for all of this and asking you people to come and join us has to do with this information, initiating the play, and then how does it impact the next scene? And we're hoping that some of you actors will join us for that when we cast the next session. This is Nathan's crazy idea of doing this till we're done with the play. Randy and I will be 104. We will make it to the end, but it is a neat idea to have the play unfold, as you know, as Ben said, with such attention to even the very first scene of the play. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sandy, did you
Yeah.
have any? She's not hearing me. Did you have any observations, Sandy? Sandy Ernst.
Oh, Sandy Ernst. Go ahead.
Even you, Sandy.
The better Sandy
many
should
Sandys?
speak.
I will yield the floor to Mr. Robbins. The same, I just am enjoying so much being a part of this and listening to, as Ben says, things that you never spend any time. I mean, let's face it. Do we put our best actors in as these roles that are start the entire show off? No. So, pulling it apart like this, and like I said last time, just setting the play up in a way that is an exciting, it gives me chills. That ghost story at the very top. I don't know. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I don't have any questions. I yield to Mr. Robbins.
Well, the first thing is what a joy it is to be even on Zoom in a rehearsal room where you're actually doing the work that ought to get done to get on stage. It's a joy. And, Horatio's big speech there, which has so much important sets the world of this play, is almost invariably cut in productions I've seen. It just hacked to pieces, but there's such riches in it that my ear hadn't really gotten them, because you never get to hear them in a production. But the whole of that duel that old Hamlet and Fortinbras had sets up so many things. The honorable man that King Hamlet is set in that scene, and we know him to be a just man and a man of honor. That seems to me quite important. And we also discover, and this was, I kind of knew this, but it was never alive for me as it was after this afternoon. But we discover that land, which is rightly young Hamlet's, is now at issue.
Yes.
And it tells us something both about the forthcoming invasion and the validity of Fortinbras's invasion. And raise it, if it's heard the way it was heard this afternoon, it raises the stakes so very much. The other thing that really popped out to my ear is when Horatio's asked, looks it not like the king market Horatio? His answer is most like. He is not certain that it is in fact.
Right.
And it's never played that way. It's never played, at least I've never seen it played, where the veracity of the identity of this spirit is at issue. Not only is it awesome that a ghost has appeared, but is it in fact who it appears to be is at issue. I mean, anyway, it was just rich, and I'm so honored to be invited. Thank you.
I have to say I have to reiterate something that Sandy said, that's like, oh yeah, that's it. That the thing that really struck me was that whole Fortinbras stuff. Leah and I read this last night, and Leah was pointing out to me, I had not really gotten the history of old Fortinbras, old Hamlet. And and today it was made even more clear for me for the first time what that history was.
Yeah, and it comes from a Norse, story called from Saxo Grammaticus, and that story, it's not what we have in the play completely, but there is that battle between old Hamlet and they have different names, but Fortinbras, and they make an agreement between them that they will fight privately. And old Fortinbras is jealous of old Hamlet's reputation. They decide to meet, but they make a vow to each other that whoever wins gives the other warrior, a burial, a an honorable burial. And whoever wins takes the treasures that either has on their ship. They win that as well. Old Hamlet is where the Hamlet story may go off a little bit, is that old Hamlet takes that treasure and gives it to the king of Denmark. Now, keep this in mind. Old Hamlet's father is not king of Denmark. Gertrude's father is king of Denmark. The throne goes through Gertrude, not through old Hamlet. And the only mention we have in the play is the imperial jointress of this warlike state that Claudius will say. It's not enough, again, without a history lesson or everybody having a copy of Saxo Grammaticus to see that. But again, when you go back over the source material, I think what's interesting is that it's not as easy, the inheritance of the throne. I mean, Claudius really has less right to that throne in that story than he will have even in this play, since Hamlet is an adult male and there's no reason for Hamlet not to be king. But it's through that marriage and her approval of Claudius that he becomes king, and the approval of the court. It's an elective kingship, you know. That's why he thanks everybody for going along, but we'll get to that when we get to the next thing. But it's an exciting story. And the Hamlet in that Saxo Grammaticus actually feigns madness. He spends time, and how does he feign madness? He tells the truth. So he's decided to make arrows out of sticks of wood, and he's making these arrows, and people will say, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm going to revenge my father's death." And there's no ghost in it. The character that is Claudius decides, he becomes envious of his brother and he kills him, saying that he was abusive to his wife and therefore I was protecting her. And so he kills the old Hamlet. At any rate, I go on, sorry. How I spend my life.
Are there any, no, it's great, Annie. Are there any questions from any of the other audience members? If not, that's okay, but I want to give you a chance to chime in.
You'll find that we are working from the folio, and I think I said it last week, is that you will find differences from the quarto, and there will be some famous stuff that we had to decide when we did it at American Players Theater. Is it too famous to cut out? And we left it out because we had decided that we were going to see how the folio played. But the Dramaville speech is not in it. How All Occasions is not. Part of the closet scene is not there. So it's definitely a shortened version of what you get in the quarto.
It looked like maybe Sarah, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yes, I was just gonna say, no questions, but as somebody who has not read this in its entirety since I was probably 15, and has never actually seen a stage production of this, I'm taking this as a very, I'm not reading ahead because I really want to see how everything unfolds week after week. So I'm very, I mean, obviously I know the basic summary of the story and I know the characters and how they all interact, but not on such a deep level like we're getting into. So I'm really taking in a lot of this and reading it as if I'm reading this for the first time, which is very exciting for me.
That is an exciting place to be. Yeah.
Very cool.
And I think as we move ahead, I think we'll find that, you know, and we'll trade off roles again. I'm hoping that, because it's starting now, there's a relaxed feeling to it that we didn't have first time out. And I think it's because we're seeing what people are saying, we're seeing that you can make the words important without making them boring. You know, and that you can breathe life into them. You don't have to do a lot of cutting. But again, I know that when we did Hamlet, I think the whole thing ran about 3:15 with an intermission. And we did it uncut. So everybody's so quiet.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask, Nick, your outfit for today, is this your Hamlet production that you did? You wore you wore the band shirt that you're going to see.
This was a birthday present from Randall and Anne because we knew we were heading into this, and I
Wonderful.
needed an outfit.
That's great.
Nick wants-
Oh, go ahead, Annie.
Nick wants to play. I mean, Nick. That's one of his dream roles, and
Sure.
know,
Ben has got another Hamlet in him. I think Lee and I are a little.
Yeah, afraid so, pal.
Yeah, I think you need I need to be in a lot of
Oh,
lavender light.
It's time
you
to do the
know,
ghost.
Now we're
It's time to
supporting.
do the gravedigger. Maybe the first player.
I want to crack at Claudius one of these days. That's the one that I want to do.
Ah, yes, indeed.
it's going to be very exciting to look at. I mean, I'm looking forward to moving. Now we still have a lot. Actually, believe it or not, there's a lot to do on this scene. But I'm looking forward to that next scene because again, now we meet new characters. And to see how much of this now plays into all of that.
Yeah.
So,
And I wanted to echo what a couple people have said, just how amazing it has been to explore just this scene, and even if we never did any other scenes, how much this has illuminated about not only what's going on right here, but what is to follow, just other things to keep in mind, and that it just brings out for the rest of the play. It's just really exciting to be learning so much more about these characters, the interrelationships, the history, not only like the actual history, but some of the histories of the characters and all that. It's just really fun to understand so much more about what's going on, not only right now, but how it affects the rest of the play, or at least your experience or understanding of the play. It deepens it, definitely.
yeah. And to always figure out, I mean, I love the Renaissance Hamlet by Fry, because it tells you how an Elizabethan audience would have viewed the play. And so that material, and it's again, and then you look at it and it fills you, and then you discard what you can't use. I mean, it's not the kind of thing where you're going to try to replicate that. But it's important information to help your imagination. I mean, the whole idea of who is this ghost and what does he represent? And you'll get a lot of information of how an Elizabethan audience would have viewed it. I think I may have said it last week, is that it's the first time that a ghost appears in anything other than a shrouding sheet. They come screaming. So most of the ghosts were known to be demonic in some way. And this one comes in armor. And then later on in the bedroom, we're going to see him in his nightgown. So that for the audience, that audience would have been startled by that. And I think if you find out that information, then you ask yourself, how can we bring something close to that on stage? How can we make our audiences somehow, ask questions about, well, why that ghost comes the way he comes?
That's great. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can kind of close it out, or no other comments, close it out for this week. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for your great, wonderful inputs and ideas. It's just been a wonderful couple hours. It doesn't feel like it's been a couple hours. It feels like we could all keep going for another couple hours. We're just getting started here, but luckily we'll be back next week. And again, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to the audience as well for listening in and coming up with any questions or ideas you have. And we'll pick it up again next week. Continue on with Act 1, Scene 1.
And I think next week we're going to do a little more work on the Horatio speech.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
and he has some other renderings of it.
And yes, to echo what Annie said, if you have questions that you want to send them in over email during the week, that's perfectly fine. That we welcome any format. So we're continuing to learn how to best use this format with the audience. So thank you guys for that, and we'll see you all right back here next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.